Well, good morning. I want to join Shannon in welcoming you to this service today. It's always good, friends, for us to be in the presence of our God, to sing Him praises and to offer our lives to Him in prayer, to be reminded of who we are. And I know earlier that Shannon also lifted up to you that there's a lot that's kind of going on right now in the life of our church. We're starting a new season beginning next Sunday with a new series and then one to follow that after 4 weeks. A lot of ways for you to look at those invitations in your program, consider what Bidwell has to offer you. More importantly, the presence of Christ as you draw more closely to Him. And I felt like this weekend that we were beginning to experience a little fall weather, no? Maybe just a little bit, yeah. And there was some football on last night, and the Giants right now are getting close to maybe a playoff run. Who knows? So a lot of hope and expectation in the air, and it's just sort of pointing me to all the good that God is doing and a new season upon us, and just ask that you would be praying about what God has in store for you and how you'll be committing yourself to Him and to Kingdom of God on earth through all that we're doing right now at Bidwell. So on that note, we're going to conclude our series today in Ecclesiastes by looking at the 12th chapter, starting with the 9th verse. So here we go. Hear the word of God. Not only was the teacher wise, but he also imparted knowledge to the people. He pondered and searched out and set in order many proverbs. The teacher searched to find just the right words, and what he wrote was upright and true. The words of the wise are like goads, their collected sayings like firmly embedded nails, given by one shepherd. Be warned, my son, of anything in addition to them. Of making many books there is no end, and much study wearies the body. Now all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep His commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. Let's pause again for prayer. We praise you again, Lord, and we pray that you would help us to look at you perhaps in a different way this morning than we did as we came in, that we would be surprised by your love and by your glory, your goodness, and your grace. And we're amazed that these words that were written nearly 3 millennia ago have relevance for our lives, and that in so many ways we're still asking a lot of the same questions. And so we know that you can work powerfully through the words that have been read, and pray, Lord, that you would speak to us, for no one here has come to hear a human voice or human opinion. We get that an awful lot in society. We're here to hear from you. We're here for an encounter with you, even better. And so may you bless the hearing and the receiving of your word this morning. We know you will, Lord God. We offer this prayer in the strong name of Christ. Amen. So this summer, like many of you, I've taken the opportunity to do a little bit of extensive reading, and feel that I've been doing that the last several months, more even than more recent summers. In one particular book that I have picked up that has been on my coffee table or nightstand for about 10 years is a biography about the late Jack Fitzgerald Kennedy, also known to us as JFK, one of our former presidents. And I've been enjoying it, and as I've been reading chapter by chapter, and I'm about halfway through, I'm learning an awful lot that I didn't know about the late president. One is I knew a little bit about his health issues, but as I've looked more closely, really about a third of his life, he was hospitalized because of chronic back pain and also being diagnosed with Addison's disease. Also, a trait that I've appreciated is learning about the deep friendships that he had over time. And one was with a particular person that he knew, a man he knew since his adolescence, named Lem Billings. And he and Lem stayed in close touch over the years. And there are countless letters that he wrote when he was hospitalized as an adolescent, even for a month or two at a time. He would write to Lem. Or if he was serving in World War II through the Navy and he was abroad, or if he was running for a congressional campaign or senatorial campaign, and also during his time as presidency. They stayed in touch, and he shared an awful lot with him about his own personal life. And so I'm considering this, and as I'm reading the biography, we all know that when you read a biography, you start to feel like you know the person, depending on how much has been shared. And so I'm reading this, and I'm like, I'm finding different ways that I identify with maybe certain areas of his life, or certain characteristic traits. And I thought to myself, I bet you I know more about him than his best friend, Lem Billings. Pretty bold, right? But I think I'm correct on that assumption. I have more information about the late president than his best friend, Lem. I probably know more about his upbringing, his family, his health, his running for congressional campaigns, serving as a congressman, being a senator and president, than his friend Bill, because of all this information decades later, you can know about a person. But do I really know him? Do I truly know him as well? Not just information, do I truly know him as well as Lem? And the answer is a resounding no, and we all know why. I have never spent a moment in Jack Fitzgerald Kennedy's presence. I have not had a conversation with him. I don't know what it would be like to have a friendship with him. And so it is altogether very different knowing about someone and then actually knowing them in their actual presence as a person. If we look at our passage for this morning from Ecclesiastes, we're getting a very similar message. And it's about what it means for us to know God. Not just knowing words of the Bible and understanding generally what's there, but actually having a personal encounter and knowing him in our own lives. And what this author, Kohelet, the teacher, has done throughout this book is he's gone about this really the long way. And he has, taken a step back at life, and he had kind of carte blanche access to anything he wanted in life. The world was his oyster. He was a person of wealth and prosperity, maybe even a person of privilege, but he had a great education. He had access to literature and had all this knowledge. He was successful in his career. He tried hedonism, just all-out hedonism and pleasure. And also in this book, he looks at end-of-life issues as he's getting a little bit older and helping us to understand keeping the end in mind. And he's saying, okay, step back. Here is what is most important. He's saying, don't pay attention just to all these words I have written. I'm trying to get to the conclusion of the matter. I'm trying to communicate what is the best way to live. Because as he said previously, our hearts are meant for eternity. We are made for that which is eternal. And he says this. He says, all has been heard. Here is the conclusion. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. Translation for duty, it's a Hebrew, English translators put this in later. It's really speaking to the whole of faith, of experience, of conduct, and service. He's saying, this is the most important. Fear God, keep his commandments. This is what is meant for the whole of life. This is the best way to live your life. Know God and also to abide by his ways. Now, we all know that many of us can read the Bible and have information about the Bible. We can get the words, follow the words of the Bible, or follow the message. And what's being articulated here is to follow the main message. Know God, fear God, and keep his commands. And having information about the Bible or knowing about things is not the same of the core of the message of what it's pointing to, which is to know him. Some of the people that I know who understand the Bible, have most read the Bible the best, are atheists. They're very familiar with all the content. They've read it cover to cover. But does that mean that they know God personally? Have they come into the presence of God? Have they truly tried to understand the ways of God and who he is personally, to fear and then to follow his commandments? No, that is a different matter altogether. And this passage is highlighting that. But for us to really get a handle on what this passage is saying, we have to go back to this little phrase of fearing God and what that means. Because a lot of us hear this and you're like, I didn't want to hear that today. In fact, I grew up in a tradition where I understood fear all too well. I don't want to hear about fearing God. In fact, I'm a little bit concerned right now that God is maybe a little bit disappointed in my life, and I have other things that I'm really anxious about, I'm concerned about today. So, in fact, I'm even close to heading toward the door because I don't want to hear about that. I want to fear God and experience disappointment in my life. But here's the thing behind the word fear as it's used in the Old Testament. It is about ultimately our lives being awestruck by God, of having incredible wonder toward God, of being enamored by the beauty, by the goodness, holiness, love of God. It's communicating reverence and the importance of that in our lives when it comes to knowing him. That we would step back, that we would be awestruck by who he is. And this would lead us all together to a different way of life. Oswald Chambers, who wrote the book that many of you have read called My Utmost for His Highest, he had said this. He had said that fear of God or reverence of God, being awestruck toward God, is the one fear that can eliminate all fears. That when we have that in our lives, we're truly awestruck by who God is, his goodness, his beauty, his love, mercy, holiness, that removes all fears. Think about that. Think about in your own life, if that were true, with whatever it is that you brought here this morning, if that was true for your own life, of having your anxieties and your concerns completely removed. And that when it comes to God, that God's power and goodness and glory, when we take time to get our heart and our mind around it, can have that amazing potential to remove all fears, all of them, any of them, no exception. And what a great gift that would be. And as a result of that would also help us to look at how we live and to truly trust all of the commandments that he offers to our lives, that we would learn to trust his ways more. But the ordering is so important, beginning with the fear, the reverence, being awestruck first by who he is, his beauty, his goodness, his glory, and his grace. This summer, I've taken a couple of meaningful trips with my family. And more recently, we went to visit the Monterey Peninsula. And it's just, there's something about that coastline that just absolutely takes my breath away every single time I see it. I think it's the best coastline in the whole country. And while we are there, I typically will start the morning by going along the coastal trail and going on long walks and long runs. And some mornings, I'll wear my headphones. But mostly I don't. And that's because I don't want to just take in the sights of the crashing waves of the Pacific Ocean and all the currents, but also the incredible sounds. And so I'm just absolutely enamored by its beauty and by its power. And I'll sometimes just sit at a bench and just stare. And like many of you, the ocean just has a hypnotic effect on me. I could sit there for so many hours and absorb it, take it all in. It's grandeur, it's beauty. Then also over there, I take my kids down to the rock formations. So we'll go to the beach and we'll walk around on the sand a little bit. And they like to go things. They look at the fauna and the flora, beneath the water, and they go down there with buckets and they're trying to rather hopelessly catch crabs. We give it the old college try every time. And we walk down there, and as they're going out more on the rock formations, closer to the currents, I start getting a little bit uneasy. And quite naturally, as you get closer and closer to the ocean, not just its beauty, but then its power and its majesty, there's this moment of reverence where you're taken back. And you're going, I'm going to obey your ways, follow your ways, because I am just awestruck by what I'm seeing. By not just its beauty, but also its power as you seek to take that all in. There's this whoa factor, and you take a step back. And similarly, that is true of how it is that we know God. And it begins with this woe factor of his holiness and his beauty and his goodness and his glory. And it's this right type of reverence that frames our whole lives. And friends, it's so important for us to have this experience because we're living in a pretty fearful culture right now. And a lot of us here, we have all brought our own fears with us, or maybe we want to call them anxieties or concerns. But we bring those with us, and maybe right now, for many of us, for me too, I'm concerned about the violence that we're seeing right now in society. It's getting closer and closer to home, isn't it? It makes it more real for all of us. Scary, hard. And in those moments when fear can get the best of us, even our behavior, we have to stop. We have to stop, and we have to turn toward God and look toward a God who chose to share his glory with us, who gave us life, who not only gives us a second thought, but who has redeemed our lives personally, and who can bring us comfort, who can bring us hope, who can draw near to us. Maybe that wasn't what you brought with you this morning, though. Maybe it's something else. Maybe right now it has to do with job security. And you're looking at your own life, your job, and you're like, this isn't fulfilling. I'm concerned. Or maybe right now maybe you're concerned you won't have a job tomorrow. And you're going, what do I do? What if? Maybe right now you're thinking a little bit about your kids, and as a parent, oh man, sometimes you think about what could happen. You carry that with you. Maybe it's a health scare. Maybe it's a health issue. But we can take these before our God, and we can be awestruck before who he is, and it helps us to keep our lives in perspective, in proportion, in light of who he is. We can take those before him and think about the idea that this one fear, this one reverence, being awestruck with this one thing, as Chambers said, can remove all of them. All of them. I mean, really, that's amazing. All of your fears, all of your anxieties, all of your cares. Imagine what that would do to our day-to-day lives if we allowed our wonder before God to have that effect. There are two areas in society right now that I'm particularly aware of and think are patterns. I think one is we're becoming more fearful as a society. Secondly, I think at the same time we become a lot more bored. And I'm not saying busy. I know we're busy. I'm not talking about busy. You can be busy and bored at the same time. And that is what happens when, as a society at large, you place spirituality or God kind of to the fringe, and you start trying to create a sense of your life, find meaning and purpose in your own life by going at it alone and trying to do that on your own, instead of looking to who God is, his beauty and his love and his grace, and allowing that to frame who we are when we truly see his character. And then we also go, oh, maybe he knows something about how it is to best live too. And having that change us, having that bless us even from the inside out. My son and I, on Thursday nights, we go up our driveway and we take our garbage cans out, for garbage day. And he's 6, and kind of the long game behind all this is we're hoping that over time, Dad won't have to go out there with him, maybe. So trying strategy and all these different things. It hasn't taken yet. If you have any tips, let me know. So we're going up there, and I'm hugging these. I'm lugging these massive garbage cans up there. Maybe I'm breaking a little bit of a sweat. It's uphill, and our driveway is sort of a ramp. When it's late at night, all you can see as you're going up it is you have this incredible view of all the constellations, the galaxies. You just see stars and a pretty great view of the moon as well. And Hayden stops and he says, "Whoa, dude." And I go, "Yeah, that's right, isn't it? Whoa, dude. Look at that. Can you believe it, Hayden?" I'm still sweating, but whoa, dude, wow. Will you look at that? Look at that beauty, Dad. Take it all in. And maybe even as if to say, I wonder who's behind it all. And I'm brought into this moment of wonder with him. Awesome. And my question for you this morning is, what is your whoa dude factor today? Are you saying wow lately? Are you saying wow to who God is as you look at him? As you consider his character and his goodness and his love and his beauty and who he can be in your life? Do you have those opportunities of whoa as you step back and you take in who he is? And as you come here and you sing praise toward God on a Sunday morning or during the week, do you have that sense in your heart and in your mind of wow, you share your glory with us, you create us, you redeem us, you're walking in my life. God's holiness, that he's so other than us and yet he reveals himself to our lives. Do you have those moments? Do you allow yourself those moments of whoa, wow, I can't hardly believe it? David Brooks, who I talked about a couple times this summer, and he wrote the book, The Second Mountain. It's really one of the better books I've read in the last few years, and I recommend it. The Second Mountain, David Brooks. He tells a lot of great stories, and one of them is about the author Tom Clancy. And Clancy, as you know, he writes a lot of different genres, but a lot of them are espionage or political thrillers, and they're very long and detailed. And so he's having lunch with Clancy, and this is just after he wrote The Hunt for Red October. And so they're having a conversation about it, and Clancy had just returned from being on a battleship. And this is just fresh in his mind. And so as they got to the topic of his books and where he had been lately, he starts to talk in detail about the battleship and the technology behind it and all of its different tiers and what makes it function, what makes it operate, and the grandeur of it. And Brooks said, as he started to talk about this, his face just lit up like a giddy little child. He said, only someone who could look at battleships and write 900 pages about it, right, would be so fascinated. You have to be fascinated. And that was the effect that it had on him. Just a battleship, getting the guided tour of one. Can that be true of our own life with God? As we sing about him, and as we think about him, and as we talk about him, can we have that level of excitement of looking just so closely at a God of glory and grace and beauty and holiness, that it can just truly impact our heart and our soul in such a way that we're giddy like children, and we're just excited and passionate and truly alive? Because, listen, there's a lot of words in the Bible, and just so you know, yes, we read the Bible, we want to know about the Bible, we're students of the Word. That is all true. And we want to follow the Word, but what about the message? The overall message, and the one being communicated here in this passage today. Be enamored by God. Be awestruck by God. Draw near to him. Take a close look at who he is. And allow that wonder to shape your whole life. Yes, all the words, but are we followers of that message? On Wednesday, I had a dentist appointment, and I was sitting there in the dental chair. I'm not sure of what quicker way to completely remove all wonder from your life so quickly. But I'm sitting there. I'm like, okay, this has got to happen. I got to have a checkup. So I'm sitting there, and whenever I'm in a dental chair, I'm like, what am I supposed to be doing right now? Okay, remove your mind from what's happening. And so I started thinking. I listened to the music, and when I'm there, they always have this music, this playlist that they play in the background. It's pretty much the same music every time I go there. So, and it's this song by Bryan Adams called "Everything I Do It For You." You've probably heard it before, and it came out about 30 years ago, and it was from the movie Robin Hood when Kevin Costner did his very best to play a Robin Hood, and it was really interesting. And so I'm listening to this song, and that 30 years ago, that song had some sentimental value. I'm like, it was moving, and you watch the video, you're like, yeah, everything I do it for you. And then I'm sitting in the dental chair, I'm like, I'm gonna really listen to what this guy's talking about. I'd die for you. I'd walk the wild for you. I'd lie. I think he says, I lie for you. Everything I do, he says, oh, I do it for you. And he's speaking to his significant other, presumably. And I go, that's a lot to lay on a person. Everything you do it for this one person? Everything. I mean, get your mind around that. For real. And then I stop, I silence my cynical mind, and I go, the man's in love. And that's the point. And friends, that's the message. That's the message. There's all the words, but the message. For when you're awestruck, when you see the beauty of God, His love and His goodness, grandeur, power, presence, you want to do everything for Him. That's the message. Think about it.